Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization. Let's go to the podcast. Tim Flanagan and Scott Womack, welcome to the podcast. We have a very special topic today, and that is you both have walked the Camino. And we're going to talk about your experience there, and I'm going to turn it over to you all. But really, as we get into our retirement years and we look for more adventures, I know our classes, for example, a group is going to Scotland this year, and went to Ireland last year, et cetera. You both just did the Camino. We're about to hear about that. Everyone's looking for adventures. I thought this would be a great window into a certain type of adventure that you both have embarked upon. Before we kick off, though, Tim, why don't you tell us where you're at in the world and just catch everyone up on what you've been up to?
Okay, I couldn't figure out a real job, so I stayed 30 years in the Army, retired in 2016. Immediately, I did one of my Caminos then. On my transition leave, took a job on the Army staff running the training peg, which is managing the G3's training program as far as dollars for about 4 years. And in 2020, I transitioned over. I'm a chief of staff of one of the National Incident Management Assistance Teams, 3 deployable teams with FEMA. So I'm subject to a 2-hour recall to be anywhere in the United States within 12 hours, anywhere in the world within 18. And I've been doing that, and I'm doing that for the next 5 minutes to the next 28 months. Kind of got mapped out.
Amazing. Wow. Well, that's its own podcast. You're a fountain of interesting information. Just in that quick overview. Thanks so much. Sure. Scott, catch us up with where you're at. You're our beloved VVSL, of course. We cover our VA, but talk about where
I retired from the Army as an Africa Foreign Area Officer in 2011. And we bought a homestead farm in West Virginia, and I started teaching high school. I taught junior RTC and French for 7 years, and then let the beard and hair go and stopped the RTC and taught German and French and English for the remainder of my time. And retired from high school teaching after 14 years in 24, and kind of looked around for other work, but not too hard, and decided cash flow's okay. We're living large on the farm. There's always something to do up here. So just kind of quit looking. I did run for school board, and the fools made me the school board president pretty quickly after I got on there. So I have been busy with that kind of thing, politics at the local level in a small rural community that has more cows than people and no stoplights and no chains,
I'll steal this from the dean, who I heard an excellent presentation he did up there. He said, it's the West Point way. You take your kids to the Little League, and next thing you know, you're running the thing. It's just the West Point way, right? So,
Indeed it is.
The Camino. Tim, how did you get the idea to do the Camino? You mentioned it was right after you retired from the Army as your first one. What was the original inspiration?
So the original inspiration was, I started out as Scott and I were both tankers, cavalry guys for our initial part of our Army careers, and it was death before dismount. But near the end of my military career, I decided if I want to do any of these types of things, I need to do them early. So in 15, I went up to spend a week in the Sierras, hiking up out of Yosemite all the way up, and did that. Climbed up Half Dome and then scampered for about a week around until I said, this is really hard. And I read about it in Backpacking Magazine about the Caminos. Okay. And if you want to give you a little short history of what the Caminos are.
Yeah, please. Let's go ahead and set the stage. What did you find out about in the Backpacking Magazine?
So Backpacking Magazine talked about the Caminos, which is a series of ancient pilgrimage routes. And Scott, if I get this wrong, you got to jump in because you just did the prime one, lately. That essentially is the relics or the bones of Saint James, one of Jesus' apostles, was found in the 800s. In a series, he was buried in Santiago de Compostela. There's a big cathedral there. I mean, it took a while to build the cathedral, and that became one of the 3 major pilgrimage routes in Catholicism. And it didn't hurt the fact that at that time the Moors and the Christianity were essentially at war. And the more people you had in the area, the more control you had. And that was the struggle, especially in Spain, of that time, of who was going to control territory. Anyways, these these pilgrimage routes were blessed by the Catholic Church. The main one being Saint Jean Pied de Port in France across to Santiago. For years in the Middle Ages until essentially some of the death and the Black Plague and stuff slowed it down a bit. And by the 1980s, these routes were not in well use, but they've come back. In fact, they had well over 500,000 people do it this last year.
That's amazing.
25 just closed out. But not everyone registers, and that's a whole other thing. So there's a whole series of ways you can register. There's a whole series of how things are done. So how did I get into this? Once I realized that I did enjoy the hiking part, which kind of surprised me, I found a way that was an easier way to do this. So you can do this in a variety of ways. There's a robust tourism industry set up. So you, from town to town, you walk. You don't have to carry a stove. You don't have to carry a sleeping bag. You don't have to carry a tent if you truly do not want to, or if you don't want to. And you stay in albergues or hostels, or I'll say bed and breakfasts, hotels, whatever you want.
Right.
The certain towns have municipal albergues, which are very cheap, provide a bed and basic comfort, and you get to sleep with 40 to your 100 closest friends for the night. Yeah. Which all the snoring and all the noises that people emit at night is great. And it is probably an area where a cross section of people, I'm talking from the very young to the very old, get together. You can make amazing friendships, or you can have a solitary, part of your hike.
Well, let's talk about the routes, because I think and I'll throw a map up here to illustrate the different routes. And so there are how many routes are there now? For instance, you mentioned, Scott, that you went on the main route. Which route did you go on, Scott?
I went on what's called the French route, or the Camino Frances, and it starts at 4 different places in France. If you want to do the whole thing, there's about 300 miles worth of it in France, which most people skip. And all of those converge at a little town called Saint Jean Pied de Port, which is in the Pyrenees Mountains on the Spanish border, basically. Okay. So you start there, and then you start heading south and west through the Pyrenees until you hit kind of a flat place called a plateau called the Meseta. And I guess it's the best known one and the largest traveled. But there's another one that comes in from Italy, and it links up at Saint Jean Pied de Port as well. Comes through Barcelona. And then there's other ones. Like I think Tim did the Portuguese one. There's one that comes south to north along the coast in Portugal. So there's actually
the rough distances, not that we're memorizing them all, but I know there are different lengths. So the Portuguese one is the shorter one. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
It is a shorter one. So the Portuguese depend from Lisbon to Porto. If you start down there, that's not the primary start route. That's 400 kilometers alone. And then you have about 250 to go from Porto, the home of port wine. So another great place to start, to Santiago is about 250 kilometers.
250 kilometers. Yeah. Okay. And then were you the prime route out of France is how long is that route?
If you're starting at Saint Jean, it's 486 miles or 779 kilometers.
Okay.
If you're in it, you don't have a whole time, or you're not physically able to do the whole thing, the church will recognize it as close as 100 kilometers to Santiago, which is in a town called Sarria, Spain. And so when you're walking it, you'll show up at Sarria and the number of pilgrims will explode. Because people who only have a week or two or just can't manage to walk that far will start at Sarria, and you can still earn what they call your diploma if you start there. So
Tim, you've done it multiple times.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done 9 different routes over 7 years.
9 routes over 7 years.
Yeah. 2016, I did the one that Scott did, and I actually went to Finisterre, which in Latin is the end of the world. It's not truly the end of the world, but the medieval times. That adds another 2.5 days onto your trip. Beautiful sunset.
The actual end of the world is in the steam tunnels.
Yes. That's another podcast, totally. I guess if you haven't done it already,
a whole other podcast.
Yeah. That's one. 17, I did Porto to Santiago in about 8 days. But I also did the Ingles, another great one, about 5 days. It's barely about 118 kilometers. Goes from Ferrol in the north down to Ferrol. I can't pronounce it right. See, I'm not a
Mhm.
Spanish teacher, Scott. So you got to correct me on the pronunciation.
Scott's our
All
linguist
all
for
the way
this.
down
Yeah.
to Santiago. That's one of the shorter ones as well. And I've done let's see, I've done the San Salvador, which is a really tough one from
Hmm.
Leon to Oviedo, and then the Primitivo from Oviedo to Santiago 1 year. I've done the Madrid, so I walked from my hotel in Madrid all the way up to the midpoint. I actually went to Leon for that. That was about a 14-day hike. The
Okay.
Inverno from Leon to Santiago, which is Inverno is commonly known as the winter way. In the winter, pilgrims would go that and avoid going over else Cerebro, which is one of the higher parts on it in the winter, and there's snow usually there. And I
Uh-huh.
did the Norte, a chunk of the Norte, this last May. Did 14 days or about 270 kilometers. Beautiful. All of them had their own beauty
Hmm.
and experience. Some are very solitary. I mean, in Madrid, I think my hiking buddy and I saw like 6 people until we got
Really?
to the midpoint to the last 2 days. And then, of
Well,
course, like Scott
speaking
said,
of solitaire, I mentioned classmate Ed Hendricks, who also did it in the same period that you both recently walked the Camino. I spoke to him by phone, and he had a more solitary experience by design, and that's what he chose to do. And he said that it's gonna remain a solitary and personal experience for him, which we love. But he will give him full credit as also having done the Camino and enjoyed it, which I think leads to kind of the curiosity about the forms of intent around it, because there's certainly the spiritual and religious approach to it. I actually worked in Spain in one of my adventures, and people who worked for me there would mountain bike it as,
yes.
as a
Yeah.
as a fitness thing, right? So talk about that in terms of perhaps your own intent and experience around it, and what you found when you were out there.
Scott, you want to go first?
Scott, kick
I
off here.
mean, me personally, it was kind of a multiple things, and that's kind of eventually enough variables pile up on me, and then I'll make a decision, go do something. And I had first learned about the Camino back in the '90s, and one of the photos you'll see of me with these guys dressed up like pilgrims in old timey medieval looking stuff. One
Right.
of those guys was a high school student was my exchange student when I was stationed at Fort Knox, and he graduated from Fort Knox High. Loved America. Ended up coming to college. He lived with my parents in Atlanta. Then his brother came and lived with my parents and lived in Atlanta while he was in college. And they met us in Santiago. They're from Santiago originally. So I was aware of it back then. And my first wife at the time and I said, one day that'd be fun to do. And then she died in 1997. And my response to that was just to get busy and thinking
Yes.
motion will just put all that away. And so I've been like on this sprint for since then. And
Right.
then recently my parents had talked about doing it because Alejandro, the kid from Spain, he walked it with his brother in the winter and got my parents interested in it. But, they were a little, my dad was like, no way, he's too logical. And so he's like, it's not going to happen. And so they passed away recently. And my sister and I, just kind of by chance, we're like, let's go walk the Camino for mom and dad.
There
And
you
and
go.
I'll throw Lisa, my wife, in too. And we'll just do it. And so some of it was that, just something to kind of honor them. But also I had been so busy, I just wanted to check out for about a month. And I knew if I stayed here on my farm, I wouldn't check out. I mean, I live in a remote place. I theoretically could, but there's so much going on here. And
You got a few
really,
things to take care
I'm
of there.
all embedded in the community pretty hard with the veteran stuff and all that. And I figured the easiest way just to check out was to do this.
Yeah.
So, I told everybody I wasn't going to be checking email or Facebook or any of that. And it was kind of hybrid. Like my sister is very different than me. She's very outgoing, very extroverted. So we would, in the morning, I would leave. Like we would start together, and I'll walk faster than she does, and I would be alone all day because that's what I wanted. I wanted solitude. So I didn't really talk much to fellow pilgrims on the way or anything like that. Maybe at lunch when I stopped. But in the evening, Sue would catch up with me, and then I was ready to socialize, right? And then we'd
Yeah.
have dinner together with other pilgrims, and it was a lot of fun. So it was that, and then it's very fitting moving worship. I'm a Quaker. We worship in silence. So being able to do nothing but be quiet all day was amazing, because that's kind of how we worship. It's sort of a listen and wait, not talk all the time and make noise. And so
Right.
that was really, and then I wanted to get fit. Farm work is good for your upper body, but I should do nothing walking anymore much.
Sure.
And so this got in shape. All the aches
Okay.
and pains I had in my back, stuff like that, after about 3 days were gone.
Is that right?
Because
That's
core
great.
muscles,
We're gonna get to prep
you know,
in a sec because I think it's
yeah,
particularly at our vintage. We all have to keep an eye on the aches and
yeah,
pains.
yeah.
Now, Tim, you talk about because you've done it so many times. How has your intent changed over time? Certainly, you had an idea with the first one, and talk a little bit about your different perspectives on it.
So I'll give you a little bit lead up. You asked it, and I didn't answer your question fully on why I've done this. I said I had the time. I knew I had time coming up as a transition. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. In this, I was still 51. I'd love to tell you I was in great shape. I wasn't. I was gaining weight like everybody else does. It's not like the John Candy moment, the Stripes, where it's, hey, join the army, lose some weight, get in shape type thing, get paid to do it. But I was still getting paid. I had a way to get down there. And I figured if it doesn't work out, who cares, right? I can go do something else in Europe. I'm over in Europe. Getting there, like I told you, I'd hiked the year before the Sierras. I asked my wife, said, hey, I'm looking, this is really interesting. And there's this movie called, here's a recommendation right off the start. There's a movie called The Way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not a perfect representation of the Camino. There's a series of other movies too. But
Yeah.
Martin Sheen is the star of it. His son, Emilio Estevez, you remember from The Breakfast Club and other movies, St. Elmo's Fire. He was the director, and he plays his son in
Mm-hmm.
in the in the movie. And I'll give you the first 2 minutes of the movie, and then I won't give you any more. But the first couple minutes of the movie, essentially, we find out Martin Sheen's a doctor. He's kind of estranged from his son because his son is studying anthropology, was working on his PhD, and decides, to hell with this. I'm going to do what Margaret Mead did. I'm quitting school, and I'm going to travel the world, get to know people. And he does that. Martin Sheen's not very happy about that. Well, all of a sudden, Martin Sheen's on the golf course like all good doctors in the afternoon with other doctors, and he gets his call saying from the police chief in Saint Jean Pied de Port that his son had been killed climbing the Camino. It's
Yep.
not that dangerous. I mean, that's the other part, but that was the premise of the movie. If
Right.
off into the fog or something, and he goes out there to claim his body, and then he makes the decision to travel on, and then what he does for the rest of the movie sets up the stage for the movie.
For the actual action in the movie, it
The
is a
actual movie.
terrific story,
Right.
and I think it's a freak storm that
Yeah.
causes it's basically seen as an
And that is
accident.
true because the
Story.
Pyrenees. No, and,
Yeah.
and the reason why the movie's important is because I'm still trying to figure out what to do. I've asked my wife, and her response when I said, "Hey, you mind if I go off for a little over a month by myself?" Was I don't think so at this point, right? And I've done stuff before. Turns out one of our Marine friends retires, and his wife at one point is talking to my wife and goes, "Walter is driving me crazy. He's at home. He doesn't have a job. He needs a job. He needs to get out of the house."
Right.
So I didn't know this part. She comes back and says, "Hey,
That's
that
like the
trip you
John
wanted to
Candy
take."
moment. That's the other moment that all of our wives reach.
Yeah. She goes, you might want to take that trip. If you want to do that, go ahead. I'm okay with you taking off for a bit.
Go.
So the other part of that is every night I'm an insomniac. I wake up, I flip the TV on, and Showtime's on, and that damn movie was on like 6 nights at 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning. So, you're being told to do something. You might want to listen once in a while. So that kind of
Some
precipitated
people
that.
would call that a sign. That's right.
I guess so. Again, I'm a lapsed Catholic. I go to Protestant church when I go. So that's a
Yeah.
whole other story. We'll talk about why people do the Camino.
Right.
Anyways, so here I'm going on a long route here. Bottom line is I went over there with the intention of, I'll see what happens. The first 2 or 3 days, I'm solo. I meet a guy. He's in the lower bunk. I'm on the upper bunk. The first night in Saint Jean de Port, I got the last bed for €8 in the municipal albergue, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's basic. I'm talking
Sure.
the single bathroom for men and female with stalls. So that's the other part of the European experience.
It's like Buckner without the glitz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm going that, and by the third day, I'm tired. I'm hurting. I don't think I'm in good shape as Scotty 10 years, and I'm 10 years younger at that point when I did it in
Sure.
16. But I meet the same guy in my bunk, and we both had similar lonely experiences the night before. So for the next 14 days, we're traveling together. I've got his back. He's got my back.
Yeah.
At day 17, he has to go back to Denmark. He's from Denmark, and he and his wife will finish it the next month. He's coming back. Anyways, that's the guy who becomes my friend, and I've done every other Camino with him. So we meet
Oh, wow.
every year over there, plan our trip out ahead of time.
That's terrific. And
And
that's
travel.
very much like the movie because the Martin Sheen
Yeah.
character meets these people and they end up having adventures
Right.
together. That's terrific. So you made a Camino friend that you
Right.
all have connected back up.
Right. And people who know me, they don't want to be my friends. So that's the good thing is in that situation. And as you get older, it's hard to make friends anyway. So this has been a good experience for both of us. But the other
That's
part
all
of
we
that,
got is each other, Tim. That's the problem, right?
yeah. Talk
So
about the solitary experience that other people want to do. So
yeah.
my second half of that Camino, for the next 12 days, I'm on my own, and I kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed what Scott talked about, but also
Mhm.
since I met people along the way, I still had people to eat dinner with if I wanted, or
Yeah.
it's one of the few places where you sit down and you have a community dinner, and people will talk about themselves a little bit. And that frequent question is, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why
Mhm.
do you want to do this? And that's the question. The other question that doesn't usually get asked is, what do you do?
Right.
There's not
Right.
that interrogation of what's
Nope.
back in the real world, what your job is. Anyways, so I've had a friend the entire time, the last couple of Caminos, or the last 7 or 8, which has been great. But I've also had the experience of having a solitary Camino, which I think is important. I think you need to think, get inside the right. Now, the difference, I post on my Facebook every
Mhm.
night. It drives my buddy crazy because I'm clicking away, typing with my thumbs, and I'm a lousy speller with that.
Right.
And I've got the picture. So if anyone's a friend of me through Facebook, you can go back along my journeys. Ignore my other rants, but you can see what I post every day and get an idea of what my feelings were at the day. I'm unlike Scott. My first 2 weeks, my feet after the third or fourth day started turning into hamburger
Is
because I
that
was
right?
wearing boots. And now I only hike in Hokas with silk liners and smart wool socks, and I've never had a
Yeah.
blister since that first Camino.
Good. Well,
But my feet are pretty.
foot health. I think that's a really important topic. So how there's so much people are there's so many different products that they're trying to market us for all these things. So you
Right.
wear Hokas with a decent socks. Now, Scott, how did you? Well, first of all, Scott, I think I'm gonna sneak a picture in here. You know the period garb, the whole lid. I mean, the whole thing, man. I mean, you look because Scott did send a picture back from the Camino, and like you went full pilgrim on this thing. So talk about your get up there.
Well, I mean, the clothes I wear is what I wear around the farm. So, I wore just M65 army pants. They're the ones before OG 107s and BDUs, just
Yeah,
cotton sateen green with cargo pockets.
yeah,
And then this is the shirt I wore and vest every day. I did a
yeah.
I did a fall Camino, so the temperatures were really pleasant. The coldest day I think was 36 Fahrenheit. Hottest day was about 75. So, I didn't need to bring a lot of snivel gear. For symbolic and just because I'm weird, I wore army stuff. So I wore issued army boots.
You did.
Because somewhere in the world, like my kids in the army, a lot of my former students are out there doing Marine and Army stuff. They're wearing boots every day. So I figured I'd wear that. I carried my Alice pack that I had when I was a lieutenant. I don't know if y'all knew Craig Guth, class 84. He loved to buy old weird history stuff and surplus stuff. He took me down to Fort Dix when I was a yearling, and we bought a full set of TA 50 at the DRMO sale for almost nothing. which I used the rest of my career. So when they issued me stuff out of CIF, I just put it in a bag in the garage and never
Yeah.
touched it. It still got rejected, but anyway. So
Yeah.
I carried the rucksack, you know, and wore the army boots. I wore just merino wool socks.
Okay.
I started with silk liners and merino wool socks, and the army boots just fit too close.
Right.
So I had blister problems like right out of the gate because the first day from Saint Jean is long and 20 kilometers of it is uphill. It's a thousand
Right.
foot gain in one day, and it's a pretty crappy walk to start on. And it took me about a week for my feet to adapt to get
Oh
blisters
boy.
back.
Okay.
But once my feet settled in, no problem. My sister, she wore Hokas. When I ran New York City Marathon, I wore Hokas. They're great shoes, lightweight. Um, some parts of Camino can be a little rocky and unmaintained. And Sue had some problems with those, so she would just walk on whatever the nearest paved road was,
Right.
because she has knee and ankle things. And
Yeah.
I just went ahead and did the rough part. A lot of loose rocks and sort of like the Appalachian Trail. Not
Okay. So
much, but it was about 2 days of that, maybe three.
but you did have to. You did at the beginning. You had to work through some blisters and things just to
Yeah,
find
and
your formula. Right.
I pulled out the old 50 minutes walk, 10 minutes rest thing,
Yeah.
and I would do a foot check
There was a little
every
card
hour.
in that old TA50 you pulled out with a
Yeah,
little
yeah. And
different.
then at lunch, I'd take my boots off, prop them up. You know, I had foot powder, the whole thing, just like it was back in the 82nd. You know, I just did the same thing I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
when I was back there. So,
Well, you were certainly dressed for it. What, Tim? You've got so many photos. You've shared quite a few photos. Your Facebook, of course. What's your usual kit when you go on the if you go on it?
So I've got a whole
Yeah.
list of stuff that I've
Yeah.
fine tuned over the years. I go a little bit excess. I'm probably about 21 pounds total. I've got a 38-liter backpack that I've used every year. One
Okay.
thing that I'm not sure if Scott used, did you use hiking poles or hiking sticks?
no, I carried an old wooden staff, old
Yeah.
school. My
Okay,
sister had the poles.
A period appropriate wooden
Yeah,
staff, like a
yeah.
true pilgrim.
you are a man among men, sir. Because
Yes.
I've got the Leica or whatever carbon fiber poles that I bought
Hmm.
in 15 for my Sierra hikes. My hiking partner from Denmark calls them old man poles. He got a year or two on me, and he just started using them. But I'll be honest, I find them tremendous help on going uphill, and they slow your descent downhill. There's a couple places near Zuberi, like the
Hmm.
second and third day, that is down. I mean, the first day
Mhm.
is straight up, and I think it's more like 1,000 meter gain that you're going up, and then you come back down.
Yeah.
My first trip coming down into Roncesvalles from Saint Jean Pied de Port, I saw two young women carrying a pack between them. As I got up there, I realized that there was a woman from Canada who had fallen, did a face plant, and they
Oh
were
no.
carrying her backpack. I'm like, hey, I'll carry that for you, you know. And they're like, no, we got it. And after about a half kilometer falling behind, they're like, hey, could you take
Mm.
this? So the
Yeah,
last,
yeah,
we got it. This poor woman, she had to be medically, I'm gonna say evac, but she had
yeah.
pretty
Help.
messed up face, and that is not common, okay. But there are people who will fall along. I love the poles. I will not hike without them.
I'm an
Um,
advocate for either the staff or the poles because it does help. Having lived in the Colorado mountains and doing quite a bit of
yep,
hiking, poles are a good thing. So it's great. So you take the poles along with you.
yep.
So talk about prep. So if any of your classmates, we're all now of a vintage, and some people may be nervous about being prepared for something like this much mileage. What prep did you do, if any? Scott, what prep did you do?
I kind of did the same thing as when I was prepping for the New York City Marathon,
Hmm.
except instead of running, I would rock march.
Okay.
So there's a series of trails. I got trails all around my farm, and then there's some old rail trails, abandoned rail beds that they've turned into hiking trails around here.
Right.
I would just go out, after meeting on Sunday and do 10, 15 miles walking with a 22-pound rucksack. And
Okay.
the only thing that once I was on the Camino that I wasn't really ready for was we decided to not take any breaks. Like sometimes people stay, you get to a city like Lyon, it's lovely, you want to check it out, you just chill out for 3 days and
Right.
tour. We decided, no, well, my sister, but yeah, we're just going to get it done. And so the
Right.
unremitting 30 days of 12 to 15 miles a day, it wears on you after a little while because there's just no chance to catch up, you know?
But you don't, if you have more time, you don't need to set that kind of pace,
No, no.
is the point, right? So if
There's
you're,
it really, I would suggest don't have a time
don't do
limit.
that.
Just
Yeah.
walk the Camino, and if you want to chill somewhere, stop and chill. Weather's bad, just hang out a while. You know, it's pleasant. I mean, it's a very pleasant experience, so shouldn't be rushed.
Now, Tim, with as much experience as you have and knowing the different routes and things like that, how do you prepare for your more, if you're doing it now, for example?
Well, so I'll be probably doing May, June, another 2-weeker, and that's since I'm back at work. Obviously, I'm not taking a month off, or I don't have that opportunity anymore.
Right.
I like to do at least 2 or 3 long hikes over the weekends just to get my mind back into it as opposed to my body. I
Mhm.
do try to plan ahead, and my hiking partner is in Denmark, so he's in the same time zone. I've got to figure out getting over there a day or two ahead of time to try to get some of the jet lag off. I like the long hikes, and it to me, what's really important is to get your stuff, your kit, as you phrased it, set early enough so that you go a couple long hikes and figure out what's chafing and what isn't, what's going to be good to wear. I mean, you're not going to replicate unless you go on a couple day hike totally, but it gives you that idea of what you need to carry. I said, I've got, there's a million lists out there posted. There's a
Right.
million YouTube videos on what you should carry in your kit. I'm always more than happy to share what I've got. It's going to work for me. I'm sorry, I mentioned earlier, I said, I'm a little excessive. So 3 pairs of merino underwear, 3 t-shirts, all black, one regular shirt I can wear at night. I've got a very lightweight 55-degree sleeping bag because I'd like to be under my own stuff. And I stay in hotels a lot. The albergues I
Yeah.
stay on, for the most
Okay.
part, are one that have a bedroom that my buddy and I get twin beds in our own bathroom. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a bathroom down the hall and everything else. That makes a difference too, because you're unpacking your stuff every night and repacking it every day, and so
Right.
you try not to unpack too much of that equipment. But
But
I try
it's
to do a little bit of training, but I don't do enough. I'll be honest, I do not do enough of the
you
training.
do
I felt that
you,
the Norte
you don't
this
do
last
enough,
hike.
but you emphasize the kit and the feeling. But
Yeah,
what this is a very unique recording to a unique group of people. So like
yeah.
anyone watching this recording from the class of 86 is going to completely get like your kit layout. And
Yeah.
once you get out on the, once you get out and you're humping that thing, there's going to be that one thing that really kills you. I mean, these concepts are the old army, old soldier concepts that we're all very familiar with,
But I
even
think
if someone out of date on, right?
what Scott said was really important. You don't
Yeah.
have to rush this, and you don't have
Right.
to do the whole thing in one
Nope.
fell swoop. Um, it, there's no right way to do this, and there's no wrong way to do this. And there are
Right.
some purists out there will tell you can't do this. You shouldn't do
Yeah.
this. You shouldn't take a taxi around something. You shouldn't skip this part. I mean, Scott will talk the Masada is boring to a lot of people. It's long and flat. It was to me the one that I saw in the movie that impacted me the most. I loved it.
Yeah.
In part by then you've met enough people. There's camaraderie. He had a sister on his. I had nobody the first one, so I met my buddy. But you had this whole Camino family that kind of develops around you. With I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
besides your primary family, there's secondary people that each of you know, and I still maintain contact on Facebook today with a lot of those people.
Amazing. Amazing. So I think the thing that would feel hard is we're all so used to having our lives organized when it comes to travel. What is it to get a room along the way? Is it pretty much you just ruck up to as far as you go? Is that easy? What kind of preparation in terms of admin do you have to have done ahead of time?
How
I
much?
mean,
Yeah.
there's an old saying, it was an old saying, but everyone walks their own Camino, right?
Right.
And so the some people are very organized, and there are literally tour companies that will book a stage for you every night. They'll carry your bags if you want. They'll make reservations at restaurants for you, and you just basically walk.
Okay.
Sue and I decided to just sort of surf the thing, and just show up. And that worked for a couple of days, and it works until it doesn't, because we were off season. A lot of the albergues close during off season. Most of them close at the end of October. So when we got into our November walk, it was getting hard to find a place. And
Right.
so we decided, rather than just surfing, we would, the night before, plan a stage for the next day and book something if we could. And we stayed in a mixture of paroissiales, which are church-run hostels,
Mm-hmm.
which usually offer a communal meal. Oftentimes they'll do a little preaching at you, which is fine. It's interesting, because they're all run by the Catholic Church. So for me being a non-Catholic, it's interesting to see that angle of it. Then there's the ones he mentioned, municipal ones, which are very bare bones. It's like Buckner, except as a kitchenette.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's literally is. It's bunks in a bathroom and a little kitchen.
Right.
Then there's hotels. I mean, there's all kinds of options, and then privately run ones. And we stayed in just about one of everything on the trip, but mostly we stayed in the either private albergues or the
So
ones run by churches.
the technique you settled into was kind of how you're feeling that day. Then
Yeah,
you book an
yeah,
endpoint basically, then walk
yeah,
to that endpoint.
yeah.
And Tim, how about you in terms of the different? Have you taken different approaches over the years?
Yeah. So my first couple of Caminos, we made no reservations. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a term that Scott, I'm sure familiar with, called bed race.
Yeah.
You're trying, you get to a town and you're worried. Now he traveled in a lesser part. I was there. My first one was April to May, where people were just starting. They just opened the Pyrenees. They closed the route, the Napoleonic route over the Pyrenees, in the fall, and it's a fine if you have to get rescued.
Mm-hmm.
Until about April or so, we had just gotten, when I went through to get over and climb the Pyrenees instead of taking the Valcarlos route, which is a route around, one of the mountain, the first part of the mountain along the road. So I guess I gambled, but we found places everywhere. There's a term called the Camino provides.
Yeah.
You're going to find something. You may have to hop in a taxi and go 5 kilometers back or 10
Right.
kilometers forward, and then come back the next morning or different ways. But there were times I would go 40 something kilometers on my own, get to the place I wanted to stay, and it's like, oh, we're full. It's like, I've been seeing the sign for this place for 20 kilometers, and I got there, it was like heaven. People drinking wine and talking. I'm like, fireplace going, like, I want to stay here. It's like, sorry, we're full.
Yeah.
But the lady was kind enough to, since my Spanish is like 80, probably up to 50 words now, maybe 100 words,
Right.
call up to a place across the river where they didn't speak any English. And I had to walk another half kilometer, and she walked me out and pointed and made me a reservation.
Yeah.
So that happens. I'm much more planning. Either me or my partner will plan out, because we're on a lot of the routes we go to are less traveled.
Right.
Where I'm talking, you don't see a lot of pilgrims.
Yeah.
When Scott mentioned the municipals, there are towns like along the Madrid and other places where you show up and it'll tell you, go to this bar. And when we say bar is a cafe, is a restaurant, it's a senior citizen center. It's the
Right.
only thing in town.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have a set of keys, and you go up there, and you're only two people staying there. It's bare bones, usually clean,
Yeah.
not a problem.
Yeah.
And then you turn the key in the morning, and it's it's a €5 or €10 fee for a bed. So there's plenty of opportunities. I like the hotel route, the cheap hotel route,
Yeah.
uh, as opposed to now. So we got our own room, we're guaranteed a bathroom, and we can spread our crap all over the floor and not feel guilty about it. When you're with 50 bunks, there's only so much space you have. And really,
Yeah.
Scott's
Right.
disciplined than I am. I don't know.
The
Yeah,
Buckner effect.
yeah,
There you
exactly.
go. So to your point, Scott, you make it your own Camino, so it can be as organized or as surfing as your preference states, and off you go. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Did either one of you ever have to sleep outside? Like there's a famous scene one of the scenes in the Martin Sheen movie where he has to sleep by a river and he loses the ashes. It's kind of a crazy a
Yeah.
scene. Did you ever get caught in anything like that?
We were close. There was one place that very small town had a municipal albergue, which are supposed to always be open.
Right.
And that time of year, we didn't have to worry about it being, there was no bed race in November. There's just no
Right.
one, it's thinning out. crappy day. It was like freaking gloom period, just rain. It was steep hike. We were tired. We show up, and the municipal albergue says temporarily closed.
Right.
And there is nothing. The next place forward is like 10 kilometers away.
Yeah.
The way it had come from was about 10 kilometers backwards. And we're like, damn. And we had met this Italian woman walking it with this little dog. And she had a really hard time because they won't take dogs. A lot of places won't. But she loved her dog. And so she was doing Camino with her dog. And we saw her in the distance walking towards this little house. And we're like, what does she know that we don't know? So we walked down to the little house. And it was a little private albergue that said it was closed, but she had talked the guy into opening it up because she's very charming. And he was this grumpy old Spanish guy, you know, with a funny hat and all that. And so we showed up, and he's like, man, I was hoping just to chill with her probably. But he's like, okay. So, and then suddenly this French guy shows up, and his place starts filling up because the municipal place was closed. But that we were about to just sleep on the porch of the municipal place because I wasn't going to go back, and there was no cell signal. Couldn't call a cab. You know, it was like, we were just stuck.
Little pinch points.
I had my little poncho to make a hooch with, and you know, so it'd been all right.
So Tim, you did with 9 repetitions of different versions of it. You've found yourself in an odd spot or two.
I came close. I actually just looked totaling up. I had 116 nights of hiking besides all the shoulder days and everything else. And like Scott, I've never taken a break, a down day. I'd like to go through and get from where I'm going to each point. There's been places where the first 3 albergues like in Leon, were all full up and ended up in the monastery one where the beds were just packed, and it was a rainy day. We were just soaked coming in, but very warm welcome. It was a almost a Benedictines. I don't know which the order was. They had volunteers there, were just super. That was one. We walked 40 kilometers one day on the Portuguese way, and the albergue, which didn't show up on the app or the thing, was closed because of bed bug infestation. So bed bugs are a thing that I've knock on wood I've never encountered, but there's horror stories of people getting bed bugs and stuff. But
sure.
Common
once you get them, that's not a good
that
thing.
many people, transient nature coming through.
Yeah.
So no, but I've never had to sleep outside.
So you've had 116 evenings.
Hiking days, yeah. Not to mention like all the shoulder time or going into Madrid for a day or two or to Lisbon and hanging out.
Yeah. So, but if a classmate watches this and has even a mild interest in it, and they would have concern about, I don't want to get stuck out by a river. You've had 116 hiking days with some sort of place you had to stay. You do the hotel thing, but you've never had to sleep in the rough just because everything was closed. Scott, you came close, but you followed a woman with a dog, which I think right there is like heuristic. That's a great story, right? That's a story about the Camino that
the Camino provides, and that is a saying out there. And yeah, I never wanted for food or shelter or water. I didn't carry a lot of water. It's heavy.
There's actually
this amount of water right here.
There you go.
And just filled it at every fountain I came to. So
well, if you want water, there are places where you'll go 35 kilometers with nothing.
Right.
And again, when I'm in the Sierras, I had a water filtration system with me, a variety of them to do that. Mini Sawyers, to use. There, I don't carry that stuff. I never had to use it, but I'm carrying 2 1.5 liter bottles, which adds to your weight on some of the Caminos where they don't have places in between. There's one long stretch on the Francis that I can't remember coming out of Burgos, I think so.
Yeah,
and it's hot. It's open.
And the sign said like, don't take this route, not recommended because there's nothing there. And my sister and I are like, perfect, let's take this one. Because there's an alternate route that goes through some towns. But for that one, we just each bought 2 1.5 liter bottles and put them on top of our rucks.
Right.
To get through that long stretch. It was a long day, and the sign was right. There was Jack out there. It was was desolate. And it was nice, but it was nothing there. It was just really quiet.
Quaker paradise. Nothing going on. That's brilliant. What budgetarily? If I'm a classmate, I'm interested in doing this. Take out the flights to get there. Everybody would find their own way there, but kind of what is it? You talk about €5 evenings. What does one spend on a Camino roughly? It's obviously going to change based on the number of nights you go, but what's a way to think about how much it would cost to do it?
Scott, I'll start off on this.
Yeah, Tim, go ahead. Sorry.
So I would say you start off, if your breakfast is included where you're staying, which is sometimes the case. I like to get going earlier. I don't. You're going to spend about €5 on breakfast, and that's coffee and a croissant or coffee and some type of thing.
Yeah.
You may or may not stop for lunch. Sodas are, I think like €2 or €3.
Yeah.
About, if during the day, I drink a lot of Diet Coke. I'm like an addict. So I'll drink. It's not Diet Coke, there's Coke Zero. So there is a difference. Just be prepared.
Look, you have a special mentality if you're noticing that difference. But yes, if you're that much of a diet soda addict, note the Coke Zero.
Yeah.
So
lunch could be 8 to 10 euros if you eat lunch. Do it if you don't pack something. Your hostel is going to be anywhere from, I'm going to throw a number out there, Scott, 8 to 15 euro for a hostel for a place to stay at night, would not include dinner. And then your pilgrim meals are a little bit more expensive now. I'm going to say 10 to 15 euro.
Yeah.
Okay. Because where I'm at, some of these last Caminos, there weren't a lot of pilgrim meals. It was whatever was in the cafes of the town that we passed.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get stuck eating potato chips because there's nothing in the town. The bars and cafes weren't open.
Right.
I think that's an accurate. And then beer. And my first Camino, the hostels would have a euro a beer. It was great. They've gone up a little bit more. And again, I'm not staying in hostels as much. So you're going to spend €5 for a beer if you determine to drink it. I wasn't a whiskey or bourbon drinker before, but it's mostly wine and stuff. Wine is usually included in your meal on the pilgrim meal. So a pilgrim meal is an appetizer. It might be spaghetti or a salad or something like that. Then a main course, which is usually chicken because chicken's cheap, or some type of pork, chicken, French fries, and whatever. And then a dessert afterwards, and it usually includes something to drink, i.e., wine or water. Scott,
okay.
Hit it. Yeah, I think I averaged about $50 a day.
Okay, there we go. $50.
Generally, for lunch, I would stop at a little tienda, a little shop, a grocery store, and just buy like cheese and bread and fruit and put it in my little haversack. And we just stop along the way and do that rather than stopping and buying a lunch. Usually did a coffee break around 10, just because I love cafe au lait and or cafe con leche, and it's cheap and it's tasty, and no matter how little the town or remote it is, it's always good. And then I usually drink wine with dinner, and the Pilgrim Meals offers it. Some of them actually just put a picture of it on the table, and they'll keep bringing it out. Some of them will just give you one glass. Kind of depends on where you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think about $50 a day is kind of what we averaged.
So a 20-day trip, $1,000. Right.
I was 30 days walking.
30 days.
And then of course I did 2 days on the front end to get through jet lag, and getting to Saint Jean is not easy. There's no airport there. So you're going to take a day just getting there from wherever you land. Right.
Got it.
It could be Madrid. I flew to Bilbao, but it just depends where you land. And then you're going to have to take a train or a bus or a combination of trains and buses to get in there. And then at the end, I spent a week because my exchange student met me, and we stayed at his family's house on the coast near Finisterre for a week. And I just ate too much seafood and drank too much wine and didn't spend any money there because he wouldn't let me. So.
Well, that's a special program. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I recommend having an exchange student meet you in Santiago.
So that gives you the $50 a day as a rough guide. Yeah. Then obviously transportation if you're coming from California, that's different than coming from New York, et cetera.
And your hotels, and if you've got to stay in your hotels are more expensive.
Some are very cheap. The hotel run on the what do you find?
Some of the hotels are as cheap as 25, 35 euros a night.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, for two people, we spent, I think, 140, 150 euros a night for two people in certain cities. The cities are going to be more expensive. And again, it's, I assume for a guy who I travel a lot for work. So, my
Yeah.
Marriott points, I can usually get 2 or 3 nights somewhere. Like Leon's got Marriott hotels, and that's a
Yeah.
nice break. Oviedo has a nice Marriott hotel, but that's not the norm, especially along the French way, Francis. So you're going
Yeah.
to do that, and it's much more robust unless, like Scotty says, you're going in the off season or off peak, and they do close a lot of those albergues down.
Yeah. So, if are there apps that help you find? So, you mentioned an app earlier. Around the app didn't have the albergue that was closed, et cetera. There are apps you can download that kind of give you information about what's open and what's not. How does that work? Yeah,
There
Scott.
are the extent to which they're updated by users varies, and the
Right.
information on them, both the distance information
Yeah.
and whether or not something open is about a 70% accuracy in my experience. My sister had one. I didn't use one. I used this old paper thing they handed me at Saint Jean, which had a list of albergues with phone numbers, and it had distance, from town to town, and elevation
Yeah.
change from town to town. So I just used the matrix, the paper matrix, and
Yeah.
comparing it to what Sue was getting on her app. Some days it'd be wildly different,
Right.
like
Some days
10
you.
miles different. So I'm like, what
Right.
the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then you got
there's
the little
bronze.
signs along the way, and those are different too. So you don't ever really know how far you're walking. I mean,
Yeah. Tim,
Well, there's
what's
an
yours?
app called Bronze, which is one that I think it's in Spanish, but you can, if you've got Chrome, you can do a translation on that pretty easily. There's a whole series of them. There's a Pilgrim something. What I also like is I'm old fashioned, so I always buy the guidebook. My buddy from Denmark is an IT guy. He laughs at me, but the Brierley series is a
yeah,
book. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't buy the Rand McNally Atlas of 50 states anymore, but that was just the last couple of years to travel in the United States. But these Brierley books is written from a guy who actually just passed last year from Britain, and it's updated. I think his daughter now does it, and it's updated every year. It has all the albergues, whatever. But you never know if something's going to close because of bed
Yeah.
bugs or early in the season. And everything, and it's a short, history on stuff, and they usually have it for all the major routes, and there's other ones too that you can pick up.
So
So if you want to read ahead,
there's a certain error rate in all of the information
sure,
available, but that's part of its charm
yeah,
because you're if you
right.
were there scheduling it like a holiday cruise, and that
yeah.
wouldn't be much of a pilgrimage. But there are some resources so people don't feel like they're just wandering
There's
around Spain trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, there's another. I don't know what you would call it. It's not really a list server. It's a Casa Ivar. It's a Norwegian or Swedish guy who settled down there, and he's got it. But it's a moderated forum with all kind of people ask questions. That's a
Okay.
great place to start too. You can read about other people's experiences. People will post on it. Sometimes there's some weird conversations on there, but it gives you all the warnings or hey, I'm on it right now, and these places are closed. So it's like anything else. Again, as you pointed out, Pilaf, look at our classmates. We all have that same background, and even those people that think we're free spirits and want to do this, we're all planners in nature. We might not have worked in the G3 plans, but we kind of know what we're doing, and you're going to do a little bit of research ahead. So to me, I thought I was a free spirit on all this stuff, but it's hard to be.
Right, I gave up the affectation of a free spirit quite a while ago, man. If I don't have it, if I don't have waypoints in an operations order just to go over to the store, right? I
Yeah.
feel freaked out. Terrific. What have we not covered about the Camino experience that you'd love to share with classmates? Tim, you kick off. What
I think so.
would you add?
Some of that I talked about. There's no right way or wrong way to do this.
Mhm.
And again, hopefully you're at a point where if you didn't like it and you hated, you go do something else. But it is a tremendous eye-opening experience where you have that range. Again, in society, I'm not sure if you get, besides going to a casino and sitting down at the slot machine and talking to people on your left and right, where you're thrown in this mix of people who from all over the world. So, and depending what the favorite movie or the book is, you'll see different people come along. The Germans had a comedy written by one of the comedians that I can't remember the translation on it. I read it in English, not the original German, Scott. I'm sure you read the original German on that. But you'll see this group of people that flow through. The Koreans are the same way, or the Brazilians.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great book called The Pilgrimage by, and I'll pronounce it like Paul Coelho, right? Coelho, who's famous author and wrote a book called The Pilgrimage that essentially is, a discussion of the mythical travels through the Camino. So I encourage everyone to do it. It was such a great experience. I did offer both my kids, hey, I'll fund you through this, and neither one of them took them up. I'm not going to pay for anyone else in the class, but I did offer my kids that opportunity.
Well, now that we know that we have the Flanagan Scholarship Program, hey,
remember, I've stayed in government my whole life. I'm done all right. But I'm not like some of the high spenders.
Hey,
so all you high spenders out there, you should sponsor some of your classmates on this trip. So
that's terrific. Scott, what else would you add?
I mean, I think one thing, and when my sister and I started talking about doing this, we decided, or at least I did, I was going to do it with absolutely no expectations of anything other than walking. All I know for sure I was going to walk every day. And I think that was valuable because, like Tim said, the people you meet are just fascinating, and the reasons why they're doing it, or if they even have a reason, their backgrounds. And it was one of the most judgment-free zones I've ever been in. I didn't hear any politics about anything. Just no one was interested in that, and that was just nice to not stress out about all that stuff. And if it did come up, it was, in sort of more of a philosophical idea, not a person, and that was nice. People talked about ideas more. And as a language guy, I love being able to use all my languages, because you would sit around a table and maybe the Italian spoke French, but not Spanish or English, and the German guy spoke English, but not. And so, you end up having these conversations where people who know two languages get to use them to help the other ones out. And the only time we got stuck was with a Russian guy who spoke only Russian.
Well, there you go.
And
although we do have classmates, would have been pretty handy in that circumstance.
We had to break out the Google Translator thing for that one. Like, I can't help you with that. All I can do is order beer. Pivanitsa,
right?
Beer time. So yeah, no expectations, and just kind of enjoy it. It's a great experience. I just being able to let go. It's like a walking Walden. You kind of strip everything down to wake up in the morning. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to walk. And at the end of the walk, we're going to meet some interesting people and have wine and talk. And then just do it and then repeat. So it kind of washes out all the accumulated, stuff that's good stuff. I love what I do here in the town and on the farm, but it's a nice step away from it. It helps you appreciate that too when you come home.
Yeah. So if classmates approaching retirement, looking for a shift, who want to find out more from the source, so why go to a Swedish, online site when I can talk to Tim Flanagan or Scott Womack? I mean, I've got a guy. What's your preferred way to have classmates reach out and ask you questions about the Camino, should they be interested? Tim, what do you think?
I've got Facebook. My email address is there. Anyone's free to contact me. More than happy. I will bore you to death. So I try to, I'm a big. The thing I worry about is I build it up too much. And to Scott's point, you just have no expectations going in, and you'll have a great experience. This is not going to solve all your problems. And I think there are people who show up in the Camino as like they expect the lightning bolt to hit them for whatever reason. That's not the case. But if I can go circle back on one other thing, these a couple different little stories, and like I said, cut me off when I talk too much. My first Camino, I took a circular route, went to Germany on a Mac flight, flying out of BWI, get picked up by my buddy, stay at his place at Ramstein, who was working as a retired colonel, working as a GS-15 over there. Took the train to Brussels right after the bombing in Brussels in 2016, which is a unique experience, where the airport was cordoned off for miles around there. I get to the airport and I'm hopping on one of them cheap Ryan air flights into Biarritz. And then, I take a car in. And the guy I'm talking to next to me, they tell he was a pilgrim. I can't remember where he's from. I said, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "I'm going to take the ashes of my daughter to the end of the world and spread them, who had died of brain cancer." You have those moments. You have a moment where you're eating dinner in a community place after seeing no one for the first 13 days in the Madrid, and you're in a hotel, you've got your own room, but they had a community dinner at 7, and I'm sitting near a guy, and we start talking about it. And he's from Kansas, and I said, "Oh, I started talking about my classmate, Mike Pompeo, who I really don't know, but I know through the class, obviously." He goes,
Sure.
"Oh, he's my neighbor." He's a doctor, and it's like, wow. I mean, how does that walk in where you meet someone, that serendipity of meeting different people? Nice. The whole family was there, and they were walking.
Yeah, that's great.
You're gonna run into all those things, and you just sit down with different people who, again, different walks of life, as Scott has said.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, I would encourage any classmate interested in learning more to reach out inside our academy. Sallyport, I'll have your contact information. I'm more careful about that on Facebook, but if you're on Facebook, then you reach out there. But if anything, we now know that we have the expertise on this one particular form of pilgrimage and experience, which is available to us. And I want to thank you both for coming on, and what great stories. And I really enjoyed this one.
Well, thanks.
I got 5 more hours of talking in me. I mean, do you really want to
We're going to get you back on. Trust me, brother. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.